I felt like if he was better, my childhood wouldn't have been so rushed and traumatic like it was. My name is Liz, and I am from Indiana, and I'll be talking about the trauma of my childhood that my abusers caused and how I overcame that as a survivor and how I just didn't let it break me. When I was younger, I dealt with seeing my mom be abused by my father. Domestic violence was very high in the home. I even watched him abuse my sisters, and then my sisters would watch him abuse me, and he would just abuse the whole family. So it was just a lot of tension always, a lot of fighting in the home with my mom and my dad. That's what led to us relocating. My mom left my father after a really, really bad physical assault. It affects me as a child seeing my mother being abused by my father. It made me very anxious all the time. I would have so much anxiety. Just couldn't sit down all the time. I was always on edge, thinking that he was going to hurt her while I was at school, thinking that just the worst, that he could even potentially kill her. And as a child, I felt like I shouldn't have had to worry about those things. I always felt like the mother of everybody, trying to protect everybody. And I was just so little. It was something that, for one, for two, he suffered from mental illness as well. So, it could have been a factor in that as well. But one thing he would be very upset with us about is that we were girls. He didn't want daughters. He wanted sons, and my mom kept giving him daughters. So, it was a lot of things that I didn't understand him as a person, and I didn't understand the things he did. And I felt like if he was better, my childhood wouldn't have been so rushed and traumatic. I walked on eggshells a lot as a little girl. We were scared to pass gas. We were scared to burp my dad. That would upset him if he heard it. And so those natural functions and can't be able to do those things when needed, it was very hard. We couldn't have friends. We couldn't go outside. My mom, we couldn't have our blinds open. It was just always so dark and sad in my home. As a child, I was kind of secluded. I knew I couldn't get too close to people on the outs because then my dad would find out and be upset. So it was just very hard growing up. When I was about the age of 7, I woke up to a lot of loud music, like a lot of loud arguing. My dad was upset that my mom wouldn't give him the money from my sisters. She had a little field trip that day, and she had to have money for the field trip. He wanted it, and he attacked her for it. He hit her with a hammer. And I woke up to screaming. My dad had blood all over his face, and it was all over the hammer. He was coming to the back room with the hammer alongside of him, on his way to the room to kill me and my little sisters. And my other sister was laying in the bed. And it was very traumatic because I saw him, he saw me. It was just like, what do I do? And if it wasn't for my older sister taking the attention off of him, off of me, by trying to run out the door and get help after he hit her with the hammer as well, the back of the hammer that pulls the nail out, he hit her. She was losing blood, and she fell out and collapsed in the neighbor's arms. He would have came back there and killed me and my siblings. It's very hard to have to rush and move to another state and relocate. At that time, once we got away from him, I had so much anxiety because I would stay up all night watching over my mom. Because I'll be scared that he would come into my other family member's house that we were living with at the time, and pretty much it was so much like traffic at night. My other family members would be in and out of my other family members' homes. So it was just like, I was like, well, he could slip past and hurt my mom. And I would stay up all night and watch my mom. It was just hard. It was just hard seeing her recover from what he'd done to her. I was scared of her. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, she looked scary to me, but I knew deep inside in her heart she was my mom. It was just like, well, how he left her, she didn't look like my mom. Yes, she still has the scars to this day, my mom, from what my father did to her, and so does my other sibling. It was just very hard because I trusted everybody. I was just always like, my mom always grew us up that always have an open heart and give everybody the benefit of the doubt till they prove you wrong. That's what I did as a child. A young child, I gave my abusers the benefit of the doubt. And once we relocated to another state where my abusers were, the state that my abusers were at, the game that they told me and my siblings that they were going to play with us was called Cops. At the time, I'm thinking like, wow, I never get to play with anybody. My dad has kept us so sheltered. What's this game about? And, that game started to be a game of terrible pain. And I could never, ever forget how it made me feel physically. I didn't understand. I didn't understand why that was happening to me. Like, I didn't understand why that was happening to my sisters. After my mom was attacked and my sister was attacked by my father, we decided to move to Indiana. And that's when my mom got really close to one of my other family members. And her 2 children were my abusers, me and my sister's abusers. It was scary. It was always scary. Once again, I was always an anxious child. And when we ended up having to be around them and I was abused and seeing my sisters be abused, it made me even more anxious because my mom was so close to their mother and we would always be over there on the weekends, and that's when they would have their way. It was hard because I was so young. Like I said, I was 7 and my sisters were small, and I felt like I couldn't always protect them. And it was very scary because when I reached out and I did tell my mother, it was just like the relationship between the mothers were so close. My mother didn't kind of like believe me. It was just like, she kind of didn't want to listen she didn't want to believe what was happening. So she kind of let's not talk about it. I felt like I wanted to talk about it because I felt dirty. I grew up feeling dirty. And the game that Cops, that my abusers would play with us, they were twins, so that they would take turns playing this game with us. I even would play with one of their siblings, and she seemed very comfortable with it. And I just saw thinking that it happened all the time. They would take us to this abandoned house near their home, and they would put their fingers inside of our vagina areas, make us suck on their their penis areas. It would be very scary. It felt different. It hurt. It was just very painful. I remember telling them, I said, I don't want to play this game anymore. I said, I want to leave. That's when one of my relatives, the twins, they called me their girlfriend. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, how could I be your girlfriend and we're family? I knew that was wrong. I was like, oh my, you're my cousin. What are you talking about? It's just like the abuse kept going. The Cop game started from in the abandoned houses to my home, to their home. And then on the weekend, we stay at night with their sister. They would play the Cops game. And it just got to the point where they were being more vicious with the game. It would stick markers and stuff inside of us and play with us with their penis area and stick it in different parts of our bodies, like our ears, and make us do oral sex on them all the time. It was just got to the point where they were inflicting more pain. And I didn't know what to do. As a kid, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to tell. If I tell the school, they're going to take me from my mom. And that's everything I know. If I tell my mom, I get in trouble. I was so scared because everything my abusers would tell me, they would keep installing me that I will be the one being in trouble. The abuse lasted from 7 to about 12. I was about 12 years old. At that time, I stood my ground. I just was like, you know what? No. And they started preying on my sister, who was mentally ill. And she was a little bit more standoffish, more like they could take advantage of her. So one day I caught one of them having anal sex with her. And I got upset. I was like, you know what? No, you're not going to hurt me and my sisters anymore, and everything like that. Because I had to watch one of my siblings perform oral sex at just 2 years old on one of my abusers. So I got to the point I started fighting back. I just was like, no way, you're not doing this anymore. They would target my special needs sister whenever they had an option, when I wasn't around. When they had an opportunity, they would just do that to her. After that, another family member, after the situation with those abusers happened, another family member ended up moving in with me and my mom and my siblings. He was really close to my mom, and he started molesting me. It was very hard then because at that time I learned that the things that my first 2 abusers were doing to me was wrong. And I was like, wow, this is definitely wrong. And it was just like that person lived in the household. And at school, I felt like I felt so tempted to tell somebody. I was just like, this is not going on. I didn't want to go home from school. I didn't want to be in that household. that. And it's just like as if when I said something, it wasn't believed. It was just like, oh no, I can't believe he wouldn't do that. And, it's just like, he was doing that all the time. He even had his wife living there as well. And he was doing that over my mother's head, his wife's head, and nobody knew. And he would he would play with his penis area in his car and make me do it. It was just like sometimes when it rains, because he would do that often when it was raining outside, I could still smell his semen. I could still smell his semen in the car. Even though I'm not in his car, it's just those memories come back because I remember it being rainy outside, and I remember him making me jack off his penis area until he ejaculates, and it's disgusting. I learned that dealing with it, I just felt like, I started just trying to ignore that it happened. I keep in my mind, like, it happened, and I found myself growing up having to dress really pretty because it messed with my self-esteem a lot. It made me feel dirty and ugly. And, I just found myself doing a lot of things like having a lot of boyfriends, want to be around a bunch of boys and everything like that, just to get that reassurance that, oh, I'm beautiful, and stuff like that. Because when you've been abused so much like that, it's just like you feel, even though you might be beautiful, you feel so ugly. I've done some counseling, but I feel like no counselor can ever fix me. I have to learn how to keep on blocking that out. Yes, I'm a mom. I sheltered my kids because I have 3 daughters and a son. And, I sheltered my kids, even my son. People molest boys too. So that's why I've sheltered my kids. And my daughter, my oldest, she's 9. She's always telling me, you don't let me do nothing, mama. And I'm just like, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through. Being scared, being traumatized, and laying in your bed, knowing that somebody's going to come in your room and touch you. And knowing that, okay, my mom has to go to work, so this person's watching me, and I already know that they're going to have their way all night long until she gets home. It was just very hard for me because I always felt like I was a target. My relative that moved in with us, he would always say how beautiful I was, and he first started off buying me things. And my mom, she had a bunch of children and stuff, so she did what she can. But, it was always nice getting an extra pair of jeans that like $50, $25, and everything like that. So I trusted him. And, with abusers, they like to gain that trust so that they can do the most terrible things to you, like, and everything like that. And that's what he did. It got to the point that I almost thought I was pregnant by him. My mom had to take me to the Planned Parenthood. And that's when I told her, I said, you know what, your relative that moved in to me, and I think I might be pregnant. And so it was just very scary. I wasn't pregnant, but it did get out that relative was doing it, whether she believed me or not. It still was out there, and I felt relieved. I felt relieved that I was able to open up and say something because I kept it so quiet so long. Like I said, that abuse started from the age of 12 to like 14. I was just a lot. It was just like I was so scared to get close to anybody because I'm like, what is your motive? Anybody, like, it's just like, in a lot of times is in the Black community, well, Black families in general, they like to band-aid everything and keep things hidden. And I mean, it has to be put out there, it rots you away when you hide. And my childhood was taken. It was stripped. I didn't have a choice. Even when I gave my virginity away, I still didn't feel clean. I didn't feel like I was giving someone my first everything. I felt just nasty, like, wow, like a youth garden tool. And it was just like, I shouldn't have had to feel like that, Out of the sets of my first abusers, one of them is incarcerated right now for doing something similar to his own child and his girlfriend's children. I feel like, in a way, karma served its purpose for at least one of them, but it still doesn't take away the thoughts, the memories, and the trauma, and all the pain that they caused me. The second one, he's still roaming around. And everything, but in the third one, he never got his karma back either. So it's just like, it's kind of one of those things you kind of just wait it out and pray about it. Being abused by 3 family members at that, it really affected me as an adult because it made me not really trust men. I've been in a long yearly relationship, and I trust him, but I mean, I feel like I would be able to fully trust him if I hadn't went through so much and men have hurt me in my life that, claim that they cared about me, and stuff like that. And it's made me a very, very super overprotective parent, where it's just like my daughter can't go to a sleepover. I'm very cautious about who she's around. My kids are around. It's just made me always on guard, extra hard. I mean, because I don't want that to happen to my children. I don't want my children to experience what I went through as a child. It's definitely made my relationship with my father very, very, very distant. My mom, me and her, we talk and everything like that. We're pretty close. I get a little upset sometimes because, I went through some stuff as a child, and I just wish I would have been believed. I wish sometime that somebody would have just grabbed me up and hugged me. I just feel so broken sometimes. And I wish she knew how I felt. Absolutely, the people that I expected to protect me when I was going through all that, they did not protect me in the way that I needed to be protected. And it makes me angry. It gives me that anger. You're like, yeah, I still talk to that person. I still would communicate with that person. But I'm still angry at the point that you did not do what you're supposed to do to protect me. It was just like, okay, let's keep quiet. It's like it didn't happen. I didn't hear that. But this is how it is. We're just going to move past it. No, we're not moving past it. We're going to talk about this. And that's, that never was done. Right now, I just graduated in November from Purdue for human services. So I definitely want to help people who are going through something in their life and be able to let them know that they're not alone and that they're not fighting this battle alone. I also am trying to work on healing myself mentally from the trauma. Sometimes when I feel nasty, I feel disgusting, I'm just like, you know what, you're not that. What happens to you does not define you, and it's not your fault. And I keep telling myself that everybody goes through stuff, that it's just the way you deal with it and you come back from what you went through.